Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Monday edition of the Yard. Hope you guys had a great weekend. It was good weather around here. It was. A lot of things going on. You know how it is. It's like you got these big plans and there's steps you got to take, and sometimes it takes a while. It does. I'm looking to knock off a few things off the to-do list this week. It's going to be a busy week. It always is. You think the ball game slow down. What happens is everything else that you kind of been putting off kind of piles up. You got to address it. So that's where I am. And first thing today is knocking out this show. We got a few other things we got to do. A lot of things going on for sure. Positive things. But it is what it is. But I've enjoyed some college baseball this weekend. Not as much as I would have enjoyed it if we were playing. When you've got a vested interest, everything is a little more entertaining. But we did see some good games over the weekend. We'll talk about that much later in the show. We also had our second day of summer camps on Saturday. The talent pool a lot more shallow on Saturday than it was on Thursday. Thursday, of course, you had most of your priority targets in. We discussed that on Friday's show. A little bit thinner. Had some nice underclassmen there at the event on Saturday. Something to kind of watch as we move forward. But the reality of it is that it's going to be a busy week this week as we have camps Tuesdays, Thursday, and Saturday. And then we'll see how things go. We'll probably do something else in July when they had the big cookout thing. We used to call it the Summer Slam. It was Big Dog Camp and then Summer Slam, and I don't know what they called it. But the reality of it is anytime you can get guys on your campus interacting with your staff, touring your facilities, becoming more comfortable with your players, it's a great thing. So busy week, and be a busy week around the conference as a lot of other schools are having their camps. So some of your favorite players may be on the road going to see the competition. You'll read some articles and you'll get mad about it, you'll get upset about it. Reality of it is a lot of these guys are still just kind of sorting through their options. And when they get interviewed, they're going to be asked questions about that specific school more times than not. So you're going to think, oh, well, this is skewed. No, that's not the case. But like we do it sometimes too, right? I mean, when you got a guy that is committed to Mississippi State or is about to commit to Mississippi State, you're going to ask questions that are more Mississippi State-centric. You kind of get caught up in that sometimes too. You got to be careful, because if you don't ask the right question, you could get blindsided by something later. The one thing I always try to ask guys is, well, what else is going on? Who else are you talking to? What other visits are you going to take? It's important to understand that. You get so caught up in your own tunnel vision at times, you could miss the real story. And that means you may have a flip on your hands. And it's important to understand, too, right now Mississippi State has some momentum in state, but you need to be aware of this. Ole Miss is going to get it back at some point. It will be a seesaw affair until the very end. This is how it is. And to be honest with you, I'm excited about it. Not that I want to lose a recruit to Ole Miss, certainly not. But it's been rather boring the last few years with in-state recruiting. With Ole Miss committing so many spots to the portal, and I think now kind of realizing maybe they've got to walk that back a little bit, they're more active in-state. Plus, we've got a really good in-state crop this year. Much better than we've had the last couple of years, in my opinion. And so you're going to have a lot of players that probably take official visits to both State and Ole Miss. That just hadn't been the case the last few years. And that's not to say that State and Ole Miss haven't signed some good classes. We have. But there hasn't been nearly as much drama when it comes to in-state recruits. I remember several years back, the class of A.J. Brown and Kobe Jones and Jeffrey Simmons, that group there. If I remember correctly, Jeffrey Simmons was the only guy in that class that visited both State and Ole Miss as an undeclared prospect. Yeah. Think about that for a second. There haven't been many since then that have visited both schools. It just doesn't happen. For one reason or another, maybe it's a philosophical deal when it comes to recruiting. Maybe it's all strategic, or the fact that when the guys commit to one school or another, they're truly committed. They're not taking visits. And the commitments are coming much earlier these days. They truly are. You're not having nearly as many guys wait until the postseason or even the official visit stretch to make their decisions. More times than not, guys are committing prior to or during their senior seasons. Just kind of one of the things that we've seen. So it's important to understand that. But it's going to be an entertaining year this year with in-state recruiting. You might as well get ready. No matter who you are, where you're from, who you cheer for, it is going to be one of those years where your favorite recruit will likely visit other schools. This past weekend, Stonka Burnside, Starkville High School guy, we expect him to go to Mississippi State, took an official visit to Texas A&M. And like many of you, my attitude's always been like this. Kind of like dating, right? You want your significant other to do all of their dating before they get engaged to you, right? Same thing. I mean, not exactly the same thing, but the principle still applies. You know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously, if you're in a committed relationship, you don't need to be dating other people. I don't judge. I just wouldn't live my life that way. But you don't like your committed prospects visiting other schools because it means they're having perhaps some anxiety or some, I don't know, maybe some misgivings about a future with you. The same thing can be said in your dating relationships. If they're dating you and dating other people, it's probably good not to go by the ring. Just, you didn't know you were going to get relationship advice today, but you did. Speaking of relationship advice, next time you're in town, take your true love to Bulldog Burger Company. It's a great place for a date. It's a great place for a business luncheon. It's a great place just to recreate with friends. A lot of times I go alone. I go a little bit later than you guys, and I go sit in the booth by myself and get on my phone, and I enjoy that Mississippi barbecue burger that is absolutely outstanding. I don't get the spring rolls when I dine alone. That's a little bit much. I mean, I can't make myself that much more beautiful. I mean, eating a double dose of spring rolls might be more than the city can bear, right? But you need it. And if you're there with friends, everybody needs it. Have the spring rolls as your appetizer. They'll make you and everybody around you better looking. It's true. Have that great restaurant quality hamburger. It's one of the fine delicacies we afford ourselves. Get that chocolate shake to go. Again, I'm kind of riding the Nutella wave here as of late. I think my last 3 visits, I've got that Nutella shake to go. Don't tell my wife, but I have. You can do that and enjoy it. 3 great locations to serve you. University Drive here in Star Vegas. Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in Ridge and Flowwood area. Be mindful, live music again coming up soon in Tupelo. And the tap takeovers will kind of rotate around the 3 locations. There's some cool things, not just your typical Bulldog Burger experience. There will be some special occasions for you to go by and have some specials, but also, too, some live music and perhaps some brew that maybe is somewhat unfamiliar to you. So be sure and check them out next time you're in town. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet, M-E-A-T. All right, I want to share with you guys something that happened over the weekend that I think is important. I had a thread about it over at jeanspage.com, so if you were a Jeans Page subscriber, you probably read some of these comments, but I want to expound upon them and kind of share some insight and some intel about some interactions and observations I have about Zach Arnett. So most of you that know me know I come from a retail background, and I worked for a guy named Jim Sears in Hattiesburg, Mississippi at 909 Hardy Street at the Holligmeyer's Furniture Store. First I worked for Frank Thomas, then Jim came in. Jim was a former manager in my hometown of Columbia, Mississippi. I respect Jim Sears a lot. A lot of what I know about managing people I learned from Jim Sears. He was a guy that believed in accountability. He's also a guy that believed that there was no job beneath him. As our general manager, it didn't matter if it was work to do in the warehouse or work to do on the sales floor or closing a deal or dealing with a customer. Jim was always the kind of guy that was like, hey, I can handle it. So my value system as it comes to management is in that same vein in many respects. There was an understanding that Jim was the boss, but it wasn't because he declared himself to be the boss. He led us. He was the guy. Whenever there was an issue, he was the biggest voice in the room. And we followed him. And you enjoyed working for a guy like that rather than the guy that just sat in his office all the time and, smoked Viceroy cigarettes. And we didn't have the internet back then, so we couldn't scroll Facebook. But you understand my point, is that when you are a subordinate employee, you need good leadership. And everybody looks to the leader to see how to act. That's a profound truth of life. It doesn't just reflect retail or sports. The leader sets the culture. So Saturday, we're at camp. And, there's a battery of testing that goes on. They run the 40s, they do the short shuttle, they do the 3-cone or the L-cone drill, whatever you want to call it. They do the broad jump, they do the high jump. There's so many things they do. The same things we do at combines, right? Because you're trying to get objective measurables. You're trying to get objective times. And you can validate what you record. Whereas if somebody else does it, you have to trust what they're saying is correct. So all of that is just kind of the business of camp. It's some of the most important things we do. How tall is the guy? How much does he weigh? What's his wingspan? All those things are important. And you gather that data and you plug it into your database. And when you get ready to go look for players, you say, okay, well, here's a guy that fits the measurables and metrics of what we're looking for. It's important. Now, we finish up testing, and it's time to clear the field. I mean, you got to get all this stuff off. The cones have got to come off. The bags have got to come off. The tackling dummies, because there's so much that you do when it comes to drills, positional drills, right? There's a lot of equipment involved with doing these drills. And so it's time to clear the field. The kids are gathering and are being separated into position groups. And Steve Campbell is the guy that runs our camps, and he's out there. And Brad Peterson is involved too. We'll make sure everybody gets credit. And so directing guys, okay, wide receivers are going to be here, DB's here, defensive lineman is going to be with Coach Turner here, quarterback's here. And so you're moving everybody around. And so I look to my left, and they're removing these big tackling dummies. And the guy that's moving them is Zach Arnett, your head football coach. Not a GA, not a student assistant, not a regular assistant coach. The head football coach is out there moving tackling dummies off the field. And this is not just picking up a piece of trash. It requires a little effort. Kind of helps to be in your 30s, I guess, right? But it struck me in that moment. I said, man, this reminds me a little bit of Sears, man. It reminds me of the guy that couldn't wait for something to go wrong in our furniture store. Couldn't wait for a pipe to burst or, there'd be a mess or, something like that happens because Sears would go do it. And because he did it, I knew that I needed to do it. And so more times than not, if I saw him in the middle of doing something, I'd stop what I was doing and go help. Number one, I didn't think my manager should have to do that, but I also understood if it's important enough for him to do it, it's important enough for me. And I thought about the example that Zach Arnett is setting, not just for the assistant coaches, not just for the GAs or the student workers, but for the players and the recruits. Do you think when these kids go to Alabama, Nick Saban's going to be out there moving equipment? And that's in no way a criticism of Nick Saban. But there is an expectation of head coaches to kind of not get their hands dirty. But then there's your coach, a very proud New Mexican, Zach Arnett, out there laying his hands on stuff, moving stuff around. And I was led to go talk to him. I was like, hey, Zach, this is why you're going to make it. And he looked at me and he kind of laughed. And he goes, what? I said, this is why you're going to make it. He said, because I moved the tackling dummy? I said, yes, because you moved the tackling dummy. Yes, that's why you're going to make it. And he kind of looked, kind of put his head down. He goes, what do you mean? I said, because you're doing what matters. You're showing everybody out here that no job is beneath you. Yes, you're the guy that's the highest paid guy in the building. And if it's not too good for you, it's not too good for them. And that's one of the things that I'll share with you that I shared this with John Cohen a few years back when Dan Mullen was here. One of the things that used to aggravate me to no end is that we didn't have attention to detail. He said, but Steve, we won a lot of games. We did. Probably could have won some more had we done the little things. Little things matter. I've shared with you guys before, we used to have, and listen, if you donated these, God bless you for that, but you could have done more. We used to have these press board curio cabinets in the SEAL building. We did. And they weren't nice. They weren't. They were just adequate. And listen, when people give gifts, you can't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? So somebody gave these of the goodness of their heart. They weren't extravagant. They weren't really nice. And to be honest with you, I thought they looked out of place in the SEAL Center. And we had all our bowl trophies in there. And over time, I'd walk through there, and the bowl trophies were dusty. the glass was streaked. That's got nothing to do with the gift, right? That's got to do with our maintenance and our appreciation, our gratitude for this gift. But the thing that struck me is every recruit that walks in this building, that's what they're going to see. The first impression they have of Mississippi State when they walk into the Sill Complex was a press board, streaked curio cabinet with a dirty trophy in it. I expect better from Mississippi State. I expect better from myself. Matter of fact, I can't hardly stand myself when my office gets messy. But we're Mississippi State. We're a Southeastern Conference program, and that's the first impression we're giving people. Now, what's interesting, those curio cabinets aren't there anymore. And again, God bless whoever gave them to us. Not being critical of you, but I do wish you could have given us something a little bit nicer. But all that said, I was talking to Steve Campbell. And so as the kids get off the bus and they get their registration, they walk out on our practice field, we heard one of these kids that said, "Man, we're here." I look back and there's about 30 kids with their cell phones up recording the fact that they're at Mississippi State. They're on the same practice field that Dak Prescott used, the same place that Fletcher Cox used to go out there and practice and sharpen the saw a little bit. The same place where Emmanuel Forbes was just there last year, going through his practice reps. It was a big deal to these young men. We're here. Now, here sometimes for us gets to be a little bit of old hat. We get to be in Starkville a lot, and those of us that get a chance to cover Mississippi State, we're on the practice fields a lot. We're in the Humphrey Coliseum a lot. We get to go to Duty Noble a lot. We get to be around these facilities a lot, and sometimes you take it for granted. But as a guy that grew up in South Mississippi, I'm very proud to be a South Mississippian. When I was a kid, anything beyond Jackson felt like a foreign country. We didn't have anything. We were as broke as the Ten Commandments. We didn't get out and go travel. It's a big deal. And there are a lot of young people in this state that still live under those circumstances. And so when they come onto our campus, it's like, oh my God, we're here. We're at Mississippi State. So yeah, I've been to the JUCO, and yeah, I've been around here. Maybe I even played a ball game in the, in the stadium in Jackson. Maybe I played at Veterans Memorial. Maybe I've done that because I was good enough to, be on a team that had that opportunity. Maybe I've been to Southern Miss, but all of a sudden, I'm here. I'm at Mississippi State. Zach Arnett shares that same sentiment. One more thing I wanted to tell you I thought was interesting. A couple things, really. At the conclusion of each camp, Zach Arnett has addressed all the campers. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've covered a lot of head coaches. I've been through a lot of college football camps, not just at Mississippi State. When I worked for Fox and Scout.com, I've been to LSU, I've been to UL Lafayette, I've been to UL Monroe, been to Southern Miss, been to Ole Miss. I've been a lot of places. Been to the FCA combines. I've been a lot of different places. I've seen a lot of college coaches and how they interact with kids. Zach Arnett is at camp the whole time. The whole time. I'm not going to name some names because it's not something that's just germane to Mississippi State. But I've been some places that the only time the head coach is seen is when he comes out to say goodbye to the campers. Not reviewing players, not evaluating, not facilitating drills. They're up in their office and they're doing whatever they do when they're not on the field. And they come down for 5 minutes and say goodbye to everybody and thank you guys for coming. If you want to go to a game, let us know. And I've always thought that's not good enough. That's how I've always felt. I was like, you know what? These kids are paying this money and they're coming and their dream is to play at your institution. I think the coach owes it to them to be out there to help facilitate the camp. Zach Arnett helped facilitate the camp. And he walked around different position groups, spoke to kids, spoke to coaches, and if a guy wasn't doing a drill right, there were times that Arnett would pull him aside later and say, hey, listen, here's what I want you to do. That's your head coach. That's your head coach. Not your positional coach, not your coordinator, not a GA, not a current Bulldog player. That's a head coach at Mississippi State saying, hey, when you do this drill, next time, next rep, let's do it this way. And not in a mean way, but in a very constructive way. It's like, hey, listen, I want you to get the value out of this. I want you to learn something. I want you to leave here today being a better football player. That's your head coach. And that's why he's going to make it. And one thing that he said I thought was interesting. And he said this at both camp sessions so far. He goes, you know what? And the numbers may be off a little bit, so please forgive me. Don't go do your Google search and tweet at me. Steve, you're wrong. I'm just doing this from memory. I didn't write it down. But he made a comment that, this university, 13 consecutive bowl games. And I know for some of you, that's become old hat too, and we're like, oh, it's not a big deal. Yeah, well, for our grandparents, it's a huge deal. People forget in the 2000s, we went to 2 bowl games. We went to 2000 and we went to 2007. 2000, we're in the Independence Bowl, the Snow Bowl. And in 2007, Booby D and Derek Pegues helped us beat Central Florida in Liberty Bowl. And we set an attendance record. We were so grateful to go. So don't ever let it feel like, just getting to a bowl game. We got some fans that always want to minimize anything we accomplish. Whatever we do, we just got lucky. We're just a product of the system. And my hope is that their daughters will marry more Mississippi State positive fans and breathe that negative gene out of the fan base. All that said, I'm not happy just going Liberty Bowls and Music City Bowls. There was a time I'd been just thrilled to go anywhere. But we've been to 13 straight bowls. And a couple of those, went to Outback Bowl a couple times. Went to the Orange Bowl. It's not like we're constantly going to Shreveport and Memphis, right? But sometimes that's been the case. But 13 consecutive bowl games, only 2 teams in the Southeastern Conference, and I can't remember the exact number that he said. I think maybe he said 7 schools in the country have been to 13 straight bowl games. There's only 2 in the Southeastern Conference, Alabama, Georgia, and us. There's 3, 2 more in us. Not LSU, not Florida, not Tennessee, Mississippi State. And then he makes a point. Emmanuel Forbes was drafted, number 16 in the draft in the first round this year. Last year, Charles Cross, a top 10 pick. So back-to-back years, states had 2 in the top 16. Only 4 schools in the country can make that claim. And one of them is Mississippi State. So not only is Zach carrying our message on the day of camp, it's like, hey, we love you guys. Appreciate you coming out. Here's what we're going to do. But also, too, when you walk away from here, the last message you have is this, is you can come to Mississippi State and you're going to play in bowl games. And you can come to Mississippi State, and if you work hard enough and you're talented enough, you can reach your pro football dream. You give you an opportunity. So not only are you going to win some games, you're going to have a chance to keep playing. That's an impressive message, especially for a high school kid, because every high school kid thinks they're going to the NFL. They all think that. And what is it, less than 2% of college athletes actually play pro sports? So the chances of you making it pretty slim. But if you want to go, and you go to a place like Mississippi State that routinely has kids drafted, then that's worth looking into, right? Because we're right there with Alabama, Georgia. We're right there with those teams. And yeah, maybe we're not competing for national championships. That's not to say you can't have a great experience here. My hope is that one day we are competing for national championships. Final thing I'll say about this, and it kind of goes back to my first point about Arnett. So camp is breaking down because, after Zach speaks, Brad Peterson tells everybody, hey, we're going to go in the locker room and you're going to take that wet shirt off. We're going to give you a clean shirt. We're going to give you one you can go home with. And I assume we wash the other ones, but yeah, I'm sure we do. My point being is there's direction. And then before you leave, go meet with your position coach. And so everybody goes, and of course, they follow coach on Twitter or whatever. And everybody breaks down. And, Bumpus is a huge star. A lot of kids want to get their picture made with Chad Bumpus. They do. Probably more so than the rest of the coaches. And I think a lot of it's because of, Chad's magnetic personality. And Chad has credibility in the room. Chad has worn the uniform and played in the Southeastern Conference and, went on. People forget this. Chad led the Miami Dolphins in receptions during the preseason, and they cut him anyway, right? We're a little salty about that. Chad's about to put together a really good recruiting class, too. Get ready. Just get ready. Get ready. But in the middle of all this, when everybody's separated out by position, everybody's talking and, hey, thanks for coming. Coach, thanks so much. I learned this, or this is what's going on with me. And there are times that coaches will pull guys aside and say, hey, we'd really love for you to come to Mississippi State. Make that big recruiting pitch. And again, look over to my left. And there's my favorite guy from New Mexico with a trash bag, picking up Gatorade cups and trash over there in between the practice fields. Your head coach, taking pride in what we have, is like, hey, this is our last camp of the day. Surely he could have just mentioned to his staff, where, hey, can you have somebody go pick up that stuff over there? But no, that's what needed to be done. So Zach Arnett went and did it. And then people come over there wanting to get their picture made with Zach, and he's like, hey, let me put my trash bag down. And I think that's a good message, too, to send to recruits. Your head coach is out here taking pride in Mississippi State, taking pride in what we have, taking pride in our practice fields, our football facilities, and taking pride in the fact that, you know what, I am the head coach of Mississippi State University, and I am the caretaker of this program and all the facilities that go along with that. Zach's not the guy that's going to go sit up in his office like it's an ivory tower. And every time that I'm around Zach, he always has time to talk. He wants to talk. And a lot of times it's not just about, football or whatever. There's no time, hey, what's going on with baseball, Steve? I mean, he keeps up with it. People forget this. Zach Arnett's college career began as a walk-on baseball player at the University of New Mexico. Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, now you do. He walked on the baseball team and decided he didn't want to give up on his football dreams. As he's walking around campus and walking around the athletic facilities of the Lobos athletic complex, he sees some of these football players and he thinks, you know what, maybe I should give that a try. I'm as good as that guy. I'm as tough as that guy. And what does he do? He goes over there and becomes one of the most productive linebackers of Rocky Long's tenure in New Mexico. Impressed Rocky so much he took him with him as a GA. San Diego State. And so you got a lot of guys in coaching that have had maybe an easier path than Zach Arnett. I know he got there quickly, but the reason he got there quickly is because of his value system. There are a lot of people that have a sense of self-entitlement. And there are a lot of athletes that have a sense of self-entitlement. It's like, well, I'm a star and everybody tells me how great I am. And all of a sudden you stop doing the things that made you great in the first place. But here we are, Zach Arnett, just a few months removed from signing the contract to be your head football coach, out here picking up trash. That's a guy right there that people will follow. That's a guy that people will believe in. And I think it's important that you as the fan base know these things. The message has been carried to recruits and assistants and current players. I think you need to know that too. I think it's important that you know that. That that's your coach. And you say, Steve, it's not a big deal. He just moved a dummy and he picked up trash. No, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal because it speaks to a bigger issue. It speaks to the issue that Zach Arnett gets it. Zach Arnett understands that all eyes are on him. And he's not doing it because people are watching. He's doing it because it's the right thing. And as a result of that, people are watching. He's cut from a different cloth. That was the name of the thread on Gene's page if you want to go join the discussion. It's one of those things that makes me proud that we made the difficult decision, and I don't know how difficult it really was, that, hey, let's go ahead and rather than have some elongated coaching search and let our roster get poached, we've got the guy. We've got the guy with Arnett. And the thing that I go back to is, and listen, we've given John Cohen a lot of credit for putting the big buyout in Zach's contract. But you know what? I think it speaks to a bigger issue that Zach Arnett's willing to sign that because Zach Arnett wants to be here. And that's another thing, too. My wife and I spoke about it this morning. And after we spent some time in Albuquerque, I get it. You don't have to worry about Zach leaving us for his alma mater. I mean, that would be a big step down. All due respect to the people of Albuquerque and the University of New Mexico. But Zach Arnett, despite being a favorite son and being an ABQ product, he's not going to leave Mississippi State to go to New Mexico. So you got to wonder, well, who's going to come get him, And the thing that I hear from him when I make these comments about, just moving a tackle dummy, is Zach saying, you know what, I'm just trying to show some gratitude for this university for believing in me. Let that sink in for a second. Rather than feel like, hey, I've made it, he feels a debt of gratitude to Mississippi State. You don't think that guy could win? You don't think that guy's going to give everything he's got to win? We got to get him some players. But I can tell you this, and I talked to a couple of our returning defensive players. They are overjoyed that Zach Arnett is the head coach. And, of course, that Matt Brock continues on, and we're going to run the same scheme. But as one defensive back told me, offense is fixing to get a lot tougher too. We believe in accountability. We believe in mental toughness, but there's a physical toughness. There is this whole we're going to go out there and blow you off line of scrimmage mentality that Zach Arnett has that I believe is going to be prevalent throughout this program. I have never felt better about Zach Arnett being our head football coach than I do right now. All right, top 10 list today brought to you as always by closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. Blair is my friend, your friend. He is your friend in the mortgage industry. He is a guy that gets things done. Top 1% close ratio in the country, back-to-back years. 3 in a row. It's a guy doing little things, right? There's so many mistakes you can make, kind of building a loan, putting a loan package together. Blair's the kind of guy that gets it done quick. He's efficient. 22 years of experience in the industry. Works at Fairway Mortgage, a very reputable lender. And listen, I don't do business with people I don't trust. And I don't recommend people to you that I don't trust. Blair is a guy that I trust. And if you're going to put something as important as your mortgage in the hands of a third party, it needs to be somebody that's trustworthy. It needs to be somebody that's not trying to fleece you for as many fees as they can get, trying to jack up a lot of points on your loan so they can be compensated for that. You need somebody that's going to be ethical. You need somebody that's going to be efficient, and somebody that's going to be professional. That's exactly what you have with Blair Chandler. Visit him at closewithblair.com and give him a call or text on his personal cell number. He loves me and you enough to say, you know what? Let me just give you the 7 digits so you can call me directly. That's 601-500-2344. I guess I'm dating myself when I say 7 digits. 601-500-2344. Hit Blair up today. Let him know you heard about him on the Boneyard. We have some Boneyard listeners that are overjoyed that have had some issues in the past. Maybe they've had issues getting turned down, they've had issues not getting the loan they want. And Blair's been able to get it taken care of for them. So if you're looking to consolidate some debt or buy a home, and summertime is a great time to do that, reach out to Blair, the proud sponsor of the top 10 list here on our Boneyard. All right, I had a lot of requests about graduation week. Steve, can we get a graduation week top 10? We did that last year. Of course, Alice Cooper's school's out. That's going to be number 1, right? It should be. But there's only so many of those I can do. And so I thought, you know what? With that in mind, I was working at WCJU radio station. That's right, WCJU, right? I ended up being a program director down there. And so I have like a tape around here with the top 10 songs graduation week. And I thought, one day when we go to a reunion, we'll be glad we have this. And, of course, the internet came to be, and then all of a sudden, those lists are available everywhere. But I have an audio tape of the top 10 songs from graduation week. We did Shadow Stevens. I think we did Shadow on Sunday. We did maybe Casey Kasem on Saturday, and then Shadow Stevens on Sunday. We did the American Top 40. But I changed it up a little bit because there were some songs in there that, a couple. It was a cover that made the list, and there was another. So I put together my top 10s from my graduation week in 1990. Yes, I am from the 1900s. 1990 was my graduation year, Columbia High School. I am proud to be a Wildcat. We have won a state championship in baseball and in football here in the last 10 years. I'm very proud that I was in attendance for both. Because while I'm a Bulldog at heart, I was a Wildcat through my formative years. And I still keep up with the Columbia High School Wildcats. And I was on the very first soccer team at Columbia High School. I'm confident the first player recruited to play on the collegiate level from Columbia High School, and went to Jones to play, and then things fell apart, as we've well documented before. But yeah, I had a handful of schools that write me letters and offered me a couple little small scholarships and things of that nature. But I went to Jones to play and lasted a semester. They decided not to have a team, so I decided to go in search of another one. It didn't work out. But all that said, I don't want to chase that rabbit trail. Our top 10 from my graduation week. And you talk about some iconic artists and iconic songs. Here we go. All right, number 10. This was actually number 12, if I remember correctly. It was a cover, and then there was like one of these one-hit wonders that I didn't really like. I didn't even remember the song And so I had to play it. And I was like, I'm not putting it on my list. So I went to number 12. And this was kind of a novelty act. But one of the stage dancers for this group went on to become one of the most legendary rappers of all time. It's the Digital Underground with the Humpty Dance, number 10. And if you've seen the Tupac movie, you know Tupac was a stage dancer for Digital Underground. And as a matter of fact, that's how Tupac's career began. He began to make friends and contacts in the record industry through his time with Digital Underground. And next thing you know, Tupac became a legend, an icon. But the Humpty Dance, his humble beginnings, Digital Underground, number 10. Because they once got busy in a Burger King bathroom, and it used to annoy me too. They used to bleep that out, and I thought it was profanity. It wasn't. It was Burger King. Maybe you consider that profanity. Maybe you're a McDonald's person. That's what he said. He said, I'm a freak. I once got busy in a Burger King bathroom. I can't say that I've done that. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. I kind of like the comfortable confines of my own home. Number 9. I believe many people voted for this to be our senior song. We actually ended up going with Forever Young from Rod Stewart. We won. But this was number 2. But it's MC Hammer's You Can't Touch This. Because you couldn't touch us. We're the best class to ever walk the hallways of Columbia High School. Amazing. Great class. It all kind of fell apart after we left. You know, the 91 and 92, those classes kind of let us down. They didn't continue the tradition. And I'd like to thank the 1989 class for ruining the tradition of the last run. We used to have this tradition at Columbia High School. The seniors would do the senior run. And they'd line up in the annex, and everybody would just run down the hallways, and then you would run into the other buildings, and the next thing you know, everybody ran, and you go out on the front lawn, everybody celebrates. But those dirty, rotten scoundrels in the class of 89, they had water balloons and everything else, and they opened up doors, and they caused a bunch of ruckus, and they ruined it. We were the first class to not get to have a senior run. So thank you, you scallywags from the class of 89. Coach Hoss, a Mississippi State alum, was one of my computer science teachers. He listens to this show religiously. He will remember that. He probably will have his memory sparked from that. But it was an absolute debacle, and I'm still salty about it. And one day I'm going to go up there and have my own run. I'm owed that. Number 8, this was a band that just kind of came out of nowhere, and a lot of duets. It was rock radio, but I think this is probably their best song. And it's actually a band that your friend Brian Haydad loves. He loves this band. It's Roxette, and it must have been love. But it's over now. It's a very, very sad love song. And I'm a sucker for sad love songs. And that's a great one right there. Roxette. You remember The Look. The Look is when they hit the ground running with The Look. She's got the look. Yeah. And she does. Number 7, a one-hit wonder. And I've got a little bit of a history with this one. And I'm going to talk about this. It may offend some people, and that's okay. In this age of being offended, I am offended by your sensibilities, to be quite honest with you, that you're also dadgum sensitive. Lanier was our band at number 7. And they were kind of a Latin dance group. There wasn't a lot of Latin influence, but they themselves, if I remember correctly, they were kind of based out of the Houston dance scene. They may have reported something different. They may have claimed to be from Miami, but I think they got their start in Houston. And here is the thing, okay? So you know your good friend and host used to run the South Mississippi dance scene. It's true. I can still go. I can still do it. May need some ibuprofen once we're done, but I can still go. Can't do the things I did when I was 20, but I can still do it. All that said is, so when we used to play in Baton Rouge, so what would happen is a lot of bands from the Baton Rouge scene, of course we had some good ones. Kuiper with Tic-Tac-Toe, Kuiper and MC Flash. Pastel was from Lafayette. And of course we had a thriving dance scene from Baton Rouge, Lafayette, New Orleans, a Purple Parrot over in, or Purple Peacock. I get confused sometimes with Robert St. John's Restaurant, but over in Eunice, Louisiana, one of the best dance clubs in the world, in this little shack. It was amazing. But also, you'd rotate. You had great bands from Houston. And Lisette Melendez, people like that. The female artists from Houston were really, really strong. And there was, of course, a lot of Latin influence being from Houston. And so those ladies could dance. Lisette Melendez actually opened a show for us. in Baton Rouge, and Robbie Neville was on the bill. C'est la vie, that's right. But they tried really hard to kind of push on the male side of things, and most of those guys just couldn't dance. I mean, they could dance like the average person, but not like the girls at all, at all. I mean, the Latin population from Houston, Texas in the early 90s, if you went in there and went on the dance floor and you were disrespectful, you were going to get served, to borrow a phrase, because those ladies could absolutely go. Absolutely. The guys, not so much. And so Lanier is kind of in that vein. The song was kind of cool, but it's a repetitive chorus. Again, they were a one-hit wonder. It's a song called Sending All My Love. It was one of these synth pop songs, had a really unique voice, and so people liked it for that reason. The vocals are trash, to be quite honest with you. But it's I'm Sending All My Love to You, but it was kind of indicative of the time. So the song doesn't hold up today. But when you go back and watch this video, you'll see the guys in the leather jackets, and they got their bandanas on, and kind of got long hair, and they're just very, 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 very mediocre dancers. And I submit to you, if you put me on a dance floor with those guys, even now, I would win. All right, number 6, we had this great band, New Edition, in the middle school, I guess the preschool, no, it's not right. The elementary school and middle school years of my life, New Edition. Amazing. You know, Bobby Brown was from that group, Johnny Gill, so many great people, Ralph Tresvant. And so after that, after New Edition and Bobby Brown went solo, everybody else put out solo albums. Ralph Tresvant's Sensitivity, amazing. I love that whole album from start to finish. This Rhythm is rated R. If you know, you know. Johnny Gill, Rub You the Right Way. Johnny had that rasp in his voice, but Johnny, amazing. My, for sure. And then there was Belle Biv DeVoe. Michael Bivins was a genius, found great acts, of course, another bad creation. But Belle Biv DeVoe, of course, it's Ricky Bell, Michael Bivins, and then Ronnie DeVoe. And they hit the scene with the great track Poison. It was amazing, and it was in every dance club. The fashion was incredible, and, of course, some of the truest words ever spoken in American music. Never trust a big butt and a smile, because that girl is poison. It's true. Put it on a T-shirt, put it on a bumper sticker, tattoo it on your chest. And for some of you young bucks out there, I'll tell you, you need to understand that. You need to live it, love it, and understand it. But BBD was great. Love those guys. Poison. And then they followed up with Do Me. Remember that one? Yeah, that was long and repetitive, but it was a good one. Number 5, one of the icons of my generation is Janet Jackson. Janet Jackson had so many incredible people behind her. Teddy Riley, of course. So many people involved that had great tracks for her, great songwriting. And this is a song that maybe holds up today that you don't hear much on the radio, but it's All Right from Janet Jackson. That's your number 5 song. Number 4, one of these super groups that kind of emerged the kids from the Mamas and the Papas. It's Wilson Phillips, and they were huge. And China Phillips, at the time, one of the most beautiful and attractive women in the world, and she could absolutely sing. Absolutely sing. Absolutely incredible. And the great song was Hold On. And basically, it's one of these things kind of about depression, kind of about when you get negativity in your life, just hold on for one more day. Things will be better tomorrow. And things can change. And, you know, for people in recovery, that's a great one. But it's not just people in recovery. All of us go through something. And there are always these songs out there that provide some sense of encouragement. And I submit to you there were probably a lot more of them back in those days, because these days everybody wants to prove how bad they are and how tough they are. And there's not a lot of encouraging music in the world. But Wilson Phillips, kind of an adult contemporary group, but extremely talented ladies for sure. Number 3, I hated this song. Hated it. Until Chris Cornell covered it. It's true, I hated it. I never liked Sinead O'Connor. Many of you did. And she's singing a Prince song. There's nothing to say that she's not talented. She's just a really very weird individual. She is. There's just something not quite right with Sinead O'Connor. I'm not judging. I'm just making an observation. But this song was everywhere. It went to number 1 and stayed there. And we kind of had a feeling there had to be a connection to Prince because of the number 2. Nothing compares to you, because that's how Prince did things, right? And it's not like in today's age where you can, news travels so fast. So like more times than not, we heard word of mouth from other people. We heard about it on MTV. And nowadays, if that song came out there, somebody'd say, hey, there's the number 2. Is this connected to Prince and Paisley Park? And then somebody would answer you on Twitter, well, yes, it is. It's not like it was back then. Back in those days, we depended on each other for news. And I submit to you, it's probably more reliable. But nothing compares to you, number 3, a great song. And Prince's version of it's really good too. This song that's at number 2 was at number 1 my graduation week, but I just can't bring my... Hey, Bulldog fans, are you pressed for time? And it always seems to be where dinner time is where you have to kind of cut it, right? You just go grab something. Don't you want to put a quality meal on the table with some fresh ingredients? Well, HelloFresh is here to assist you in that endeavor. Flavor is in full bloom at HelloFresh. Enjoy the taste of spring with chef-crafted recipes featuring ripe seasonal ingredients delivered right to your door. No additional shopping required. HelloFresh makes dinner time a snap with deliciously easy options that will please everyone at your table, from fit and wholesome to pescatarian to vegetarian. They have a meal plan that suits your lifestyle. Plus, you can swap out proteins and sides to your liking. Maybe you're going to be like me and Danny. Maybe you're going to be empty nesters soon. And it's difficult to cook a full meal for just a couple of people. Well, that's where HelloFresh comes in. The bottom line is this. We've tried so many of these meal kit services, and HelloFresh is clearly the best option for you. And the best thing about it is, by being a Boneyard listener, you kind of set yourself up, man. You set yourself up by being a listener, by using our promo code. Go to HelloFresh.com/Boneyard16. That's Boneyard and the number 16. Use that code, Boneyard16, for 16 free meals plus free shipping. What could be better than that? Myself to do it, because number 1's got to have some guitar. It's an iconic song from an iconic performer. Things are really beginning to change as she began to grow up a little bit and became a bit of a fashion diva as well. But it's Vogue from Madonna. And it seemed like everybody in the world, even in like checkout lines or whatever, people were voguing as a joke to each other. But this song was incredible. The video, incredible. And it's, to me, I submit to you, these are the Madonna years, in my estimation, that are the peak years. In the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of people go back to Papa Don't Preach and Borderline and all that sort of stuff. I think peak Madonna is when she kind of got over the teen angsty stuff and got into things that were a little more global. So there you go, Madonna's Vogue at number 2. But it was number 1. I will give her credit. It was number 1, but I just can't go that way. Number 1, a song that caused a lot of controversy. People loved it initially until they dug a little bit deeper into the lyrical content. But it's from the great American rock band Heart. Ann and Nancy Wilson, and I think everybody had a crush on Ann and Nancy Wilson, especially Nancy. She was the golden girl. We loved her because she was beautiful and she could play a mean guitar. So we felt like we could relate to her and have a cup of coffee and take her out on a date or something. We had no chance. But my point being is that Heart, not only were they beautiful women, they were absolutely and still incredibly talented. That's the thing about the 80s. There were times there would be this pop culture where you'd find some cute girl and you put a bunch of songwriters behind them. And there were guys too, don't get me wrong. And you just kind of trot them out there because they had a good image. Heart didn't need a good image because Heart had the music. They just happened to have the great image that kind of came with it. They didn't need a lot of polishing. But the song is All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You. And the story behind the song is really kind of alarming. Nowadays, people would be like, oh, do what you got to do. No, back then, there were a lot of people that were upset about the song because basically what happens is a woman is married to a guy that can't produce kids. And so she goes and has an affair and gets pregnant and then never tells her husband, And like she told her, all I want to do is make love to you. I don't want a relationship with you, whatever. But that's what the song is about. A lot of controversy. The song musically is great. I can't say I agree with the message in and of itself, but it is an incredible song. Not that we would ever want to promote that sort of thing. But the reality of it is it was very provocative and caused a bit of a stir. And anytime that we have a top 10 list and we have the option to put somebody with long hair and guitars at number 1, we're going to do that. So there you go. That's your top 10 list for the day. Top 10 songs from my graduation week. And maybe your graduate, maybe it's worth for you going back and do a little research and remembering, kind of going back, I remember the song and where I was, and I remember the video on MTV. It was great. MTV used to be a real thing. Now it's 24 hours of ridiculousness and hair care commercials. But all that being said, thanks so much for your support of Top 10 List. If you have an idea, reach out and let us know. Best way to do that is on social media. You can find me on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. Roy, the keeper of the list, who's on vacation this week, at Dogmatic67, DAWGMATIC67. You can find us on Spotify under that same handle. I would submit that you probably should subscribe, and that way those lists just kind of pop up. And when you're looking for something to listen to and taking a trip down memory lane, and I suspect many people in my age demographic will do that with today's list, I think you can be glad you did, because most of these songs, too, are still played on the radio today. It may be on the older channels, but my point being is like they haven't been lost in the sands of time. But reach out, let us know if you have an idea. We'll be happy to do that. Or we may take your idea and kind of turn it into something else that we think might be a little bit cooler. But we do appreciate your support of the Top 10 List. All right, next segment of the show brought to you as always by campusbookmart.net, a Starkvillian institution. I encourage you to go by and see their smiling faces the next time you're in town. Not to mention, you can peruse their fine selections of Mississippi State merchandise. More selection there than anywhere else in the known universe. A lot of people make that claim. They back it up. They've completely renovated the bully shop. Everything is upstairs now. They'll save you a few steps. You can go in there and find exactly what you need for the Bulldog fan in your life and for yourself. Football season will be here before we know it. It's time to start thinking about that game day gear. You can find everything you need at campusbookmart.net, and by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. Again, that's campusbookmart.net, promo code BSR. Let's talk a little camp, shall we? And I'll update you on some things we're hearing with recruiting. I tell you, the guy that really impressed me Saturday, and it wasn't close, John Austin Wood from Itawamba High School. He is currently committed to TCU baseball. Parents are Bulldog alums. Dad very involved with the Tupelo MSU Alumni Association. Every time I go to a function up there, I see his dad, JD. And I'm not sure if he has interest in playing college football. I don't know, but I know that he's capable. I can tell you that. And people say, well, why is he committed to TCU baseball? What state didn't offer him? He came to camp, worked out. They elected to offer somebody else. It happens. TCU, a great program, though. No doubt about it. But this kid can spin the football, man. One of the things you look for with young quarterbacks is can they throw the 10 and 15-yard out? That's a long throw, especially when you're throwing from the far hash. And you got to ram it in there just short of the boundary. You got to have some pace on it. It's got to be an accurate throw. He made that throw over and over and over again. To me, that is the decisive throw in quarterback evaluations because it shows accuracy, it shows arm strength, and more times than not, it shows the ability to spin the football. And there are a lot of guys out there that can throw the football far, but when John Austin throws it, it whistles. You can hear it. It's incredible. I'm not sure what he does, but I can tell you this, that he will get a chance this year to show people who he is and what he's about. And I think the guy's capable of playing Division I football as a quarterback. I can. Big, strong kid, big arm. I made the comment on Gene's page, I don't know that I've seen a lot of junior quarterbacks come in and spin it with the accuracy and authority that he does. And again, just something to watch. Not to say that he ends up with a Mississippi State offer, but this is a guy that was very impressive. Really liked him a lot. A couple other quarterbacks there that kind of stood out. One, namely, that Mississippi State has been on out of Ramsey High School over in Alabama. Maybe you're somewhat familiar with that school. But, probably a quarterback that may be on our radar. Came to camp last year. back again this year. And he's clearly, number one, let the hair grow, but also, two, has improved as a quarterback. And who are we talking about? Cameron Keenan from Ramsey High School. Already got a handful of options already, and he, again, is a legitimate Division I quarterback. His offer so far, Alabama State, Appalachian State, Colorado, and Marshall. That App State jumps out to me because, Kevin Barbay, your new offensive coordinator, was at App State. So likely some evaluation that's already been done by Kevin Barbay. I didn't like Cameron as much as John Austin, but I do think that he's certainly capable. Of course, Cameron's got a much bigger body of work to evaluate as a high school quarterback, but that's a guy worth looking at if you hadn't done so already. Cameron Keenan, good player. We also had Jason Ridgel there. Got several offers. Kind of got to figure out what he is. He's got Florida State and a handful of G5s. Going to take an official to Florida State. Not sure if he's a take for them, but you'd think if they're bringing him in for an official visit, they probably like him. You only get 53 of those. The kids can take as many as they want, but you only got 53 to work with. That's interesting, right? But yeah, he's a guy, could be a wide receiver, could be a running back, could be a linebacker. I don't know. Big physical kid, for sure. State hadn't offered yet, but they may. Also had a couple of guys working out that are 2023 prospects, a handful of those guys that worked out. The guy that jumped out to me is Rayfield Lawton of Brother Martin High School down in New Orleans. State needs tight ends. He is a tight end. And he's going to be a student here. So, hey, we'll take him as a walk-on. But you look at him and you begin to wonder, why didn't he have more opportunities? And, maybe he's a guy that just simply believes in himself. It's like, you know what, I'm going to go give this thing a shot. If it doesn't work out, I can always go to JUCO. There's always a possibility. All right, let's look at some of the in-state stuff. Let me give you an in-state primer right now, kind of where things are, how I think things are going to go based on what we've seen. Conan Daniels, running back out of West Point, State's made him a priority. He did come to Big Dog Camp late to meet with staff. He did not work out, showed up wearing Florida Gators gear. That's never a great sign. Also had some people with him. But that's one that State remains in pursuit of. Xavier Gayton from Brookhaven High School. He had an early offer, and that was the previous staff. That offer has now been reaffirmed by the current staff. I'm just not sure what he is. Is he a running back? Is he a safety? Is he a wide receiver? I don't know. He's an athlete. He's one of those guys who just kind of figured this thing out. And State's obviously done a good job with him. Very productive player at BHS. Probably get down there and check him out at some point this year. But good-looking kid, for sure. J.J. Harrell, wide receiver out of North Panola. I've recently put in a flip pick to Mississippi State. I think in the end he's going to stay in State. And being that close to Oxford, you know that Ole Miss is going to be on him as well. But, based on what I'm hearing, I like where State is positioned with him, and I think ultimately State is going to flip him. I don't think he goes to Tennessee. I think it boils down to a State and Ole Miss battle, and in the end, I think it's going to boil down to who recruits him the hardest, who has the best need for him, and this is where I kind of favor Chad Bumpus. I think Chad has the ability to go get him. Now, the thing that I've learned about guys that come and coach at Mississippi State for the first time, they got to get their heart broke at some point. Some of these guys, and this is not a reflection of J.J. Harrell, so don't get me wrong. There are a lot of players out there that look in the face and say, Coach, I'm not going to Ole Miss, and then be there the next day for a camp or whatever. That's important to understand. So there's always some ebb and flow with in-state recruiting, and things get hairy late. Ole Miss does a lot of their best recruiting during the dead period. But all that being said, I think J.J. Harrell ultimately stays in State, and as of today, I expect him to be a Bulldog. A guy we touched on a little bit on Friday's show, San Frisco McGee, he is absolutely a take for the staff. And he was a guy early on, I wasn't sure how big he was until I saw him in person, field level, and watched how well he ran routes and how he elevated and how he takes ownership of the football. Really excited about him. He is a guy that plans to make his decision much later in the process. He's going to go out and go to some camps, go see what it's all about, and then make an informed decision. I like where things sit with he and Mississippi State. I put in my crystal ball pick for him. Jeremy Scott, a wide receiver from Callaway High School, camped at Mississippi State last year, came to Big Dog Camp, didn't work out, spent some time hanging out with staff, currently committed to Ole Miss. I believe this is a situation if State really wanted to go press him, State could get him. That's what I think. I just don't know at this point if State's going to go all in. We'll see. Probably have to get him back for the big cookout event, spend some more time with him. That's still kind of a fluid situation, but he's a guy that committed very early on. That's the thing about a lot of these in-state early commitments too. Unless they have a tie to the university, the process still continues, and that's really the case for J.J. Harrell and Jeremy Scott. They're both actively conversing with other schools despite their commitments. T.J. Lockhart, Mississippi State commitment from Winona. He was on campus. This is a massive human being. He's like 6'6", 365 pounds. I'm not sure if he couldn't play three-tack, to be honest with you. This is a big guy. I just worry a little bit about pad level playing on that side of the football. But a massive human being and a guy that we certainly expect to stick with Mississippi State. Stonka Burnside was on campus Thursday. Like where things are with him, but he is a guy, too, that, again, as I cautioned on Friday's show, that's going to be a long process. Even if he decides to commit, even if he committed to Mississippi State in the summer months, you're going to have to continue to work hard. That guy is an impressive player. He was on campus last year for camp, came to some games this year, back at camp, and expected to be back next month. Daniel Hill of Meridian recently announced a list of favorites. State makes a cut, Ole Miss does not. This is the son of Demetrius Hill, former Bulldog player. I'll be honest with you, I think he's probably going out of state, even though State made the cut there. I think it's one of those deals, too, where he probably needs to go camp at some of those schools to kind of validate their evaluation of him. I think because of the fact you're not exactly sure position-wise where he fits. Is he a running back? Is he a linebacker? I don't know. I think you got to get him in camp and figure it out. I would take him. I like him as a player. He's going to play quarterback this year, but he is a guy that is a winning football player, and winning football players typically continue to win regardless of their level. Norrell White out of St. Martin, he was on campus Friday. Did not camp Thursday night, but came and spent the night, spent the day Friday touring facilities, talking to staff. Currently committed to Arkansas. That's not over by any stretch of the imagination. This again, a guy that committed very, very early, but it's still going through the process. And Ole Miss, there was a time that we thought he was going to go to Ole Miss. Early decision favored Ole Miss. He ends up going to Arkansas. But that's another one that probably will be hotly contested down the stretch. P.J. Woodland is a guy, to be honest with you, I'm a little surprised P.J. hadn't committed yet. He was part of our camp contingent on Thursday, had a really, really good camp. Really impressed with him. He's listed at 6 foot and got probably a radius that exceeds that. You know, a lot of guys, by and large, their height and their radius are about the same, their catch radius. His, I think, is a little bit elongated. A guy that probably needs to put on a little bit of weight, but he has some dog in him. He's not scared to compete. There's Michael Johnson, too, at South Panola. There's a group right there in Panola County between J.J. Harrell, Michael Johnson, and, of course, Pope that if you could get all three, I think you take them. I think Michael Johnson's a big physical guy that can really run for a guy his size. So we'll see how things go there. I don't know that State's been really hot on him just yet, but they certainly could be. William Eccles out of Houston. Every time I talk about him, it seems like things change a little bit. Ole Miss, State had the lead for a while. Ole Miss offered, kind of slowed things down. They had the lead for a bit. Then State came back, and then Ole Miss did. This is one of those that's kind of back and forth, and you would say, why are we having to fight so hard for a kid in Houston, Mississippi? Well, NIL is a game changer in many respects. But William is a guy, too, that, a very talented player. We need to get him. I don't know that he couldn't play. I think he's probably more in line to play a three-tack than maybe Lockhart is. But I think Williams is a guy that can play either side of the football. Really like his game. Big, strong, physical guy with good hands. Julius Pope, we touched on him earlier. Currently committed to Arkansas, but he did spend some time on a Mississippi State campus. Another committed player that you should be mindful of is Tristan Jernigan out of Tupelo. You can't ever count Bumpus out on a kid from Tupelo High School. Currently committed to A&M, but this is one of those two. You just kind of go figure this thing out. Is he a Willie guy? Is he a Mike guy? I think he probably slides inside. I think he's going to bulk up a little bit once he gets in the college weight room. But this is a guy, too. I think it's easy to be committed to Texas A&M at this point in June as we get closer to December. I think Chad Bumpus and Matt Brock will make this thing awfully interesting. Fred Clark out of Winona, recently decommitted from Ole Miss. It was a surprise when he committed to Ole Miss in many respects. And then afterwards, everybody's like, oh, he's got some Ole Miss family. And then we began to do some due diligence and find out that his closest family are all Bulldogs. And I think ultimately Fred's going to be a Bulldog. I think a decision could come as early as this week. Could be a little bit longer, but who knows? I think he knows what he wants to do. I just think he has to be sure about it. Take some time to figure this thing out. But again, a guy that was committed to Ole Miss that is no longer. And so we'll see how things progress. But, Lockhart coming here, and goodness, Winona's just, 45 minutes down the road. Tyler Carter out of Vicksburg. We'll talk about him in tonight's Bones, too. But Tyler Carter is a guy that is kind of rising up the wish list a little bit out of Vicksburg High School. State has done a pretty good job in Warren County in the last few years. But Tyler Carter is a guy, 6'6", 240. That's what he's listed. There's not a lot of buzz out there about him, but there probably should be. To be honest with you, if I was picking teams today, I might take Tyler Carter over Alex Foster. And I like Alex Foster a lot, but I think Tyler Carter is a guy that kind of is that long and rangy edge rusher you're looking for. I like him a lot. I really do. And I think that he is a guy that maybe people have undervalued as a recruit to this point. Kamarigan Franklin recently released a top 5. Mississippi State didn't make the list. I think that boils down to Ole Miss and Miami when it's all said and done. If he goes out of state, it'll be Miami. And he's a guy, too, that's kind of prioritizing NIL opportunities and things like that. And, so we'll see. We'll see how things go. I don't expect to see State continue their pursuit of him. They'll stay in contact with him, but they will allocate those resources more towards somebody else. So don't look for Kamarigan Franklin to be a Bulldog. I like his game a lot. I really do. At one time, he was a top-rated player in the state and one of the best in the country. I guess he still is number one for us at 247 Sports within the state. I don't know that I agree with that, but he's certainly a top 5 player. Absolutely relentless in the pass rush. Got to get a little bit better against the run, but again, won't be a Bulldog. Cameron Beavers, probably the biggest surprise to me of this class is that he committed to Ole Miss out of Bay Springs. This is not over. This guy's a true natural 3 technique. I think in the end, State's going to make Ole Miss work exceptionally hard to keep him. Of course, there's some people down there that are working hard to get him to Ole Miss. And Ty Jones is a guy that we really like a lot. He and Ty are close. So he has the opportunity to come up and spend some time with Ty on campus and get to know your players a little bit. That one's not over by any stretch. And I'm told that he will take official visits to both State and Ole Miss before the process ends. Terrence Hibbler, of course, biggest commitment to date in this class from Mississippi State. That's a good building block for us. And a guy that we prioritized early. It's always good when you get the guy that's on top of your board, and he certainly was. Caleb Moore from Oak Grove, that's another guy too. Probably will be an inside guy. He's currently at 6'3", 250. Could probably carry 290 without really hurting his athleticism. That's another guy too to really watch. Alex Foster, he was good in camp. He wasn't great. He was good. He's really raw. I would take him. I wouldn't even look back. I'd feel really good about him. But I think that he is a guy, too, that will continue to add some offers. I do think State would take him right now. He'd pick up the phone to call. Then there's Aaron Travis of Grenada. A lot of people early on thought Ole Miss had the juice with him, but he has spent some time on the Mississippi State campus. I got it as a push right now. I don't know how hard Ole Miss is actually pushing him to commit. I think they were early on, but I think they're kind of taking their time with him right now. But 6'6", 250, and they're long, lean, athletic defensive linemen. State and Ole Miss both are going to sign some big-time D linemen in State this year. And both schools will probably declare victory. But the reality of it is we're producing some really good defensive linemen. And what a great year to have David Turner back. A guy with his resume and the fact that he's put so many players in the National Football League. So you're going to see State and Ole Miss likely split many of these guys and then probably feel good about it. There's enough to go around for sure. I don't know that anybody, no matter how this thing shakes loose, I don't know how anybody can say, hey, we signed the best D-line class, because I think both teams will sign a really good in-state defensive line class. One of my favorite kids, new kids in the class, Damian Miller out of Port Gibson. We talked about him on Friday. He camped at Southern Miss on Saturday and went ahead and committed. And not that State couldn't take him, but I'm happy for the young man. And if you guys are in that neck of the woods and you ever get a chance to be around him, I think you'll be excited to know that he is a very talented player and a very, very, very polished young man. So you wish him the absolute best. But that's what the camps are for. And that's what happens. You get out and you move around, show people what you can do, get evaluated, start picking up offers. And I think the thing with State is we're on some, is he a linebacker? We're on so many linebackers. I mean, you're on Fat Clark, you're on Tristan. How many do you want to take? Okay, was he a safety? Okay, was he as good as the other safety prospects we have? Is he a receiver? I don't know. But I think that's what you figure out. I think you've got to try to get him back to campus and figure it out. But the good thing is the kid has somewhere to go, closer to home, a quality program. Coach Will Hall and those guys will do a great job with him. And so even if he doesn't get the Mississippi State offer, he has a good college home, and that's one of the things we want for our in-state kids, for them to have the opportunity to play closer to home, get their college education, and make their college football dreams come true. But I like Damian Miller. He, in my estimation, I think he is an SEC player. And if you're Will Hall and Reed Stringer and those guys, and you can get him and not have to lose him to State or Ole Miss, I think you've really upgraded your talent level at safety. Just my estimation. That's my opinion. But, again, the more we continue to dig into this class and see guys in person, the more we realize how much talent there is. There are a lot of really good players that are Southeastern Conference worthy that are in the state this year. So that's kind of how I see it today. May see it differently next week. But, again, I caution everybody. There's a lot of Bulldog fans, and at times include myself, to get wrapped up in the emotional exuberance of a big recruiting weekend. And you think, oh, we're fixing to run away and leave Ole Miss in our dust. And that's just not the case. I think in the end, State and Ole Miss both will meet many of their needs in State this year, and both feel really good about their classes. But as good as you feel today, we're going to lose somebody that you really like to Ole Miss and vice versa. That's just how it is. It's going to be one of those good old-fashioned in-state slobber knockers much of this recruiting cycle. So go ahead and get ready for that. Be prepared for it. So if you're not a member of genespage.com, that's probably the best thing you can do today for yourself to make sure you are staying up to date with the latest developments in Mississippi State recruiting. I expect a very, very busy and eventful summer when it comes to Mississippi high school recruiting. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by the fine folks at Portico. Our good buddy Brooks Bryan, part of a wonderful group of developers bringing this incredible residential development to Starkville. If you're considering moving to the Golden Triangle, look no further than Portico. Turn off of 82 on the 12 like going to campus. The very first right is Pat Station Road. Go to the four-way stop. Boom, there it is. Portico, right there on your right. 1.1 miles away from all things Bulldog. What could be better than that? Neatly tucked away in a neighborhood, but close enough for convenience. That's amazing. You never thought you'd be that close to campus again unless you enrolled in classes. You don't have to. You can just live up here among us Starkvilleans and live the good life. Give Brooks a call today at 601-416-8075. Again, 601-416-8075. You can start with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home, go all the way up to a 4-bedroom, 4-bath home, and really anything in between. You need a custom build, they can accommodate you. Phase 1 is completely sold out. Phase 2, getting close to that itself. Still some homes available. Brooks can give you more information on that. And if you're not in any hurry, you maybe want to build your dream home out there at Portico. You can pick out a lot, have a say in your residential housing plans, and they can build it for you exactly the way you want. It doesn't have to be this cookie-cutter community. It's a great place to live. And again, what would be better, Grandma, than having all the kids and all the grandkids under one roof the Friday night before a big Saturday ball game at Mississippi State? Make Portico your next move. All right, the NCAA College Baseball Tournament will resume today. By the time you listen to this show, the games will have already started. Many of them are underway now. But an eventful weekend it was. Wake Forest, they win their regional without any trepidation at all. Blowout City up in Winston-Salem. Wake Forest, the number 1 seed, survives the regional without any issue at all. And then our friends over in Tuscaloosa at Alabama, they win a regional. And now you begin to ask yourself, man, is Jason going to end up getting that job? You know, he was hired as the interim when they fired Bohannon. All of a sudden, Alabama begins to play up to their potential. It's a very experienced team. A lot of people expected them to be a potential regional host this year. They end up hosting, get hot down the stretch, and they just roll right through this thing. They nearly lost game 1 to Troy. You know, ground ball to short All you got to do is make a throw, and they don't, and 2 runs come around and score, and Alabama wins. Alabama survives, and of course, then Troy beats Nichols, and there's Boston College. But Alabama wins. So Wake Forest and Alabama this weekend at Wake Forest in a super regional. So Alabama, top 20 finish this year. All right, University of Texas goes down to Coral Gables. They win the regional. They take care of Miami. Miami was the 3 seed in the tournament. Is it just me, or is Miami overseeded every year? Maybe it is just me. But I think it's ridiculous, man. I really do. I think it's ridiculous. I know everybody talks about, well, Steve, I mean, come on. SEC gets all these host sites, and we didn't have a great weekend. But Miami is living on the reputation of Ron Frazier. They have not done much or accomplished much in the last several years in college baseball. But, and they get, honestly, let's look at it. They get Maine and UL Lafayette, and then Texas. You only got one team. And remember last year, Ole Miss went in there and won that regional too. So back-to-back years, Miami hosts and has a big expectation, and they don't even get out of the regionals. Texas will play the winner of Stanford and A&M. Stanford went through the losers bracket. They smashed A&M last night. Cal State Fullerton and San Jose State both have been eliminated from the field. So Stanford and A&M will play the regional final winner-take-all game today. Could you imagine Texas and Texas A&M? Like if A&M finds a way to take care of Stanford down at the Sunken Diamond, and it'd be Texas and Texas A&M? I don't even know who would host. The committee would have to decide. Of course, if Stanford wins and Stanford hosts the Super Regional with Texas this weekend. LSU and Oregon State, it was a very entertaining game last night. A lot of home runs, not a lot of runs. And had the rain delay, obviously, that caused Ty Floyd to leave. He could probably come back if needed. But LSU, undefeated. Oregon State comes back and beats Sam Houston last night to advance today. Now, the Beavers have to beat LSU twice in order to advance. And with the LSU bullpen, you begin to think, if Oregon State can find a way to win Game 1, you feel really good about them winning Game 2. And that's a program, a Beaver program, obviously, that has a lot of pride and tradition, but it's so tough to go in on Baton Rouge and win. It really is. But that'll be interesting. It's one I'll be watching closely. Kentucky and Indiana. Kentucky wins yesterday. A lot of hit by pitches in the game. Crowd on the plate. Indiana having some control issues. Indiana was the winner's bracket. They won the first 2 games. Kentucky has to battle back, and they destroy everybody they played since they hit the loser's bracket. Beat up on West Virginia, lose to Indiana in Game 2, and then I guess they beat Ball State and beat West Virginia. But so Kentucky needs to win 1 today. So Kentucky and Indiana, just 1 game to be played. The winner advances to the Super Regional and will play the winner of LSU Oregon State. So in the event that Oregon State wins, they're likely headed to Kentucky. In the event LSU leaves, then Kentucky would head there. And then, because the tournament is not seeded 1 through 64. Anytime that you have equal or lesser seeds, then you got to make a decision. But so if Indiana would win and Oregon State win, the committee would have to make a decision. But Kentucky being a 1 seed, if they win and Oregon State wins, you can expect Kentucky to host the Supers. And Kentucky really good there in Kentucky Pride Park. All right, Tennessee, they win the Clemson Regional, and you knew when they won that first game against Clemson that Clemson was in trouble, but I thought they'd make their way out of the loser's bracket. Instead, they lose to Charlotte. Tennessee just kind of sweeps on through this thing. They will play the winner of Southern Miss and Penn. Penn wins the first 2 games on the weekend. Southern Miss, of course, ends up in the loser's bracket after losing to Samford. They battle back and beat Samford and then beat Penn. That was a very competitive ball game until the 9th inning, and then Southern Miss explodes and wins the thing 11-2. They're up 3-2, and you kept thinking, Penn's just 1 hit away from tying the game here, and then the Southern Miss offense really exploded there in the night. In the event that Southern Miss wins and Tennessee's already won, the committee will have to make a decision. But based on what I'm hearing, I suspect it'll be Southern Miss would host. Obviously, if Penn wins, then Tennessee would host. But again, the committee has to make that final decision. On the other side of the bracket, not nearly as much drama. South Carolina, no problem in there. NC State, Campbell, Central Connecticut State. We talked about them earlier this year. South Carolina goes right through, no drama, not making any headlines at all in regional play, and that's kind of what you want. They're paired up with the Florida-Texas Tech winner-take-all regional final today. Florida battles back to the loser's bracket, takes down Texas Tech. The game was tight, like 2-1 late, and the next thing you know, Florida erupts, and Florida has some pitching left. We'll see what Texas Tech does, but that'll be awfully interesting. We get down to Conway. So Coastal Carolina and Duke. Coastal having to battle out of loser's bracket in their own, if I remember correctly, in their own regional. They and Duke will play winner-take-all. Ryder and UNC Wilmington already eliminated. Ryder with a big win early in this weekend. But the winner of that will take on Virginia. Virginia, one of the more difficult regionals in the bracket. They get Oklahoma, last year's national runner-up, like a kind of a controversial pick. They go 0-2. East Carolina, a very solid number 2. And then they get Army. And Army's Army, right? I mean, you expect to win those games. But Virginia just kind of skates right on through there. No drama at all. The Nashville and Stillwater regionals are over. Really, really wild how this worked out. Oregon, the number 2, wins the Nashville Regional as Xavier upsets Vanderbilt yesterday. You know, they had a elongated weather delay, and everybody was alleging a conspiracy. At the end of the day, it didn't matter. Xavier beats Vanderbilt, and then Oregon beats Xavier to advance. So Oregon, the Ducks, headed to a super regional against Oral Roberts. Yeah, you heard that right. Oral Roberts, a team that's just kind of thrown in there geographically. Oklahoma State goes 0-2 in the regional. DBU, probably an Omaha team in waiting. They just can't quite seem to get there. Hefner's a great coach. Washington from the Pac-12, obviously. Not a lot of Pac-12 schools make it to Omaha these days, it seems. But Oral Roberts wins. I don't know that anybody except for Oral Roberts fans had picked them to win. So Oral Roberts and Oregon will be a super this weekend. And with Oregon being the 2, that should be played in Eugene. All right, bottom quadrant, Indiana State, another difficult regional. And Indiana State, the one mid-major that had the opportunity to host, they get North Carolina and Iowa. Iowa, good pitching. North Carolina, a lot of tradition. And then Wright State, kind of a rising tide in the mid-majors. So this was not a cakewalk regional at all. And Indiana State takes care of business there in Terre Haute. And so they will now move on to play either Arkansas or TCU in a super. Arkansas absolutely destroyed yesterday by TCU. You saw Trey Richardson hit 3 home runs and tie an NCAA postseason record with 11 RBI. It's ridiculous, man. And that's what has to happen. But now Arkansas, with a very depleted pitching staff, has to go handle this TCU offense in 2 games today. Of course, TCU just needs 1 to advance. They're a game behind because of the weather they had on Saturday night. But Arkansas, on the ropes in Fayetteville, the number 3 seed. I think earlier we said Miami was. I'm going blind. Miami was the 9 seed. Yeah, they were the 9. Pardon me, I was mistaken. But Arkansas, the 3 seed, on the ropes, against a TCU offense that can be absolutely relentless. And you got to think if you're TCU and you got to go play Indiana State after an emotional thing at Arkansas, Indiana State kind of takes care of business. They're kind of battle tested. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. So we will set the super regional field today, and still a lot to be decided today. At this point, only 2 of the 8 super regionals have been filled out in the bracket. So today will be obviously a very eventful day. Weather was really a problem over the weekend, but that's kind of where we are. And then all you guys want to know, Steve, what about our pitching coach? Well, here's what I'll tell you. I still believe that Rob Walton is the significant candidate. I don't and can't say for certain that he is the candidate. I believe that he is the leading candidate. That doesn't mean that things are going to work out. I suspect they will, but I want to have the caveat out there. I don't want to come out here and say, hey, here's what's going to happen. All the chatter that I hear, and I spent a tremendous amount of time on the phone this weekend, kind of suggests that Rob Walton's the guy. We've got a story written. We do, to be prepared. But I can't tell you with 100% confidence it's going to be Rob Walton. Now, today is the first day that State can officially talk to him. I guess maybe Sunday was. But now they're back in Stillwater. And wrote an update on the genespage.com baseball board today to kind of provide some updates. But what I hear, the question I kept having is like, well, why would he leave his alma mater? Why would he do that? And what I'm told is that at some point things get stale after a while. It's just kind of time to move on. And not to mention, Mississippi State's pitching coach position last year paid a lot more than the one that Oklahoma State did. And Oklahoma State's one of the top 15 teams in the history of college baseball. I don't know if they get enough respect, but pitching-wise, they were beat up a little bit this weekend, had some injuries, and went 0-2, and they're on regional. And so I think everybody is probably just kind of ready to move forward with something else. The thing that I continue to hear from people that I talk to in pro baseball circles is that Rob Walton may be the best at taking an average pitcher and making him good. You take a guy that's just kind of moving along there, and all of a sudden he figures some things out, and it's not just yelling at guys and what to say to them and challenging them. It's about mechanics, it's about development, but the mental piece is a big part of it. And Rob Walton's a guy that played on that 85 Oklahoma State Omaha team that we played. This guy's been around for a while, for sure. Doesn't have small kids, so there's nothing that should keep him. It's like you're not going to hear like a Dan McDonald thing. Well, we don't think it's the right time because our kids are in high school. Their kids are grown, right? Have some grandkids, but I think what people tell me is that a change of scenery may be good for Rob, and so it makes perfect sense. We need to go get somebody, and the thing that I begin to ask myself is, because you second guess everything you hear, is this really the guy? I tend to think that it is, but there's always the reservation too where I think maybe this is out here as smoke to cover for the real candidate. Maybe we're not even on that. And I've talked to a bunch of people and we hadn't got any new names. Kendall Rogers hadn't had new names. A lot of people out there have talked about the job but have not identified any other candidates. And so I say that just because of the fact I want you to be prepared. In the event it's not Rob Walton, I don't want you to feel like the sky is falling, because it's not the case. Now, we've got to get this hire right. We've got to get an experienced guy that knows how to recruit, evaluate, and develop. And we've got a guy that needs to fuel a turnaround right now. Now, a lot of these pitchers, most of them we had this year were first-year guys, right? So they're going to get better just incrementally anyway with a year of experience. But when you've got a coach has put guys in the big leagues and a guy that's produced a bunch of Big 12 all-conference players and some All-Americans, you feel good about that. And again, Scott Foxall, very indebted to him for his contributions to Mississippi State sports. But I think both of us needed a change, and perhaps that's the case for Rob Walton too. A guy that's very well respected in Major League Baseball circles. I've talked to a handful of scouts that say when you get Rob Walton's guys, they're prepared, and they have a very good grasp on the mental aspect of pitching, which speaks well to him. But again, a guy that's pitched at Omaha. So it's not like he's just some dude. He knows what it takes to get there as a player. Been there as a coach as well. Oklahoma State went back in 2016. But the reality of it is until we know, we don't know. And so I'll tell you again, I feel that it's trending in that direction, but I'm not ready to give you like the Rose Bowl stamp of approval just yet. And late in these processes, that's what happens a lot of times too, is you start seeing these names pop up and you have to go research them, but there just haven't been a lot of names popping up. And one final thing I'll tell you, I share with our subscribers today, is I've learned through some sources that a couple of our pitchers have been asked, hey, let's not leave for summer ball just yet. Let's put it off a couple days. Because apparently we got a new pitching coach coming to town. So I think this thing will be over this week. I think, barring a snag, it should be over this week. And so, we'll see how things progress. But now that Oklahoma State is officially eliminated, they get on back to Stillwater, and then, he can come and tour our facilities if that's the direction Chris Simonis wants to go, right? That's important to understand, too. This all may be hanging out here as a smokescreen. I don't believe that's the case, but I'm always open to that possibility. Always, always, always. It's never over until it's over. All right, if you hadn't done so, go to dogpawthebook.com. You can get most of my sports books there. You can get Dogpaw, Alpha Dogs, and Flim Flam. Blooms of Oleander, I'm not renewing it, so this will be the next little stretch. Will be. As a matter of fact, I talked to those people this morning begging me to renew. I said, I got too many irons in the fire. I can't continue to do this. So moving on from that, so if you want to get that and complete your collection, You can go to Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, BooksAMillion.com, or through your local bookstore. If you need Stark Villains gear, and I submit to you, you probably do, go to StarkVillains.com, get t-shirt, hoodies in a variety of colors and styles with that great Stark Villain font. And if you're not a member of GenesPage.com, what are you doing? What are you waiting on? I mean, don't you want to get hyped for football? I mean, doesn't that first segment of the show about Zach Arnett get you hyped up for football? I mean, fall camp's going to be here before you know it. You need a little time to kind of keep up with recruiting. And many people out there are like, oh, I can only worry about it on signing day. Well, you're denying yourself the pleasure of the anxiety of following recruiting. And we got so many knowledgeable posters on our board that a lot of them have seen these kids play, and they offer some insight not available anywhere else. So come be a part of our community. And, of course, with Zach Arnett's first full camp coming up as your head football coach, there'll be a lot to report. We look forward to that. And Zach's a guy, obviously, that never minces words. He doesn't give you coach speak. He'll just tell you when things aren't good, things aren't good. And I look forward to seeing how this thing comes together. You're going to want to be a part of that. Maybe that's a great Father's Day gift, ladies, children, when you think about your dad or grandfather or even yourself. Or maybe it's the father of your children. You think, hey, he's a big Mississippi State fan. What do you give the Bulldog fan that has everything? Well, you give him a subscription to Gene's Page if they don't already have it. Go ahead and sign up today, and then maybe on Father's Day, you give them the printout with their password and everything. It's always a great idea. And, of course, sign copies of my books. That'd be a nice little thing, too. Don't just get Dad a pair of socks. Don't do it. Dad deserves so much, man. Dad's put up with so much of your crap, your nonsense, out there cutting the grass, gritting his teeth because, somebody ran through the house with wet feet. Somebody ate the big piece of chicken when he wasn't looking. Treat Dad a little bit, all right? Don't just get him a coffee cup and a pair of socks and call it a day. Hey, Dad, we got you this card. Nah. I mean, you go out there and you move mountains for Mother's Day, and you barely remove the remote for Father's Day. Come on. Let's make this year the most special Father's Day that Dad's ever had, whether you buy my stuff or not. I'm standing on the table for the fathers in the Mississippi State fan base. Make this a special Father's Day. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.